What if the beliefs directing your choices were never truly yours? What if the shame in your bones, the tremor in your voice, and the invisible weight on your shoulders were handed to you like an heirloom, passed down not through stories, but through silence, glances, and rules no one dared to write? Imagine discovering that the river shaping you was not force but repetition, carving its marks day after day, until even your best intentions followed its curve. If that realization lands in your chest, stay with it. You may be standing at the threshold where your lineage meets its turning point, and where your life begins to belong to you. You were born into more than a household. You were born into a system already in motion. Long before you spoke, you were initiated into expectations. Keep the peace, shrink your joy, ask for less, earn your worth. Praise and withdrawal taught the same lesson from opposite angles. Belonging costs self-betrayal. Those cues felt like reality, not conditioning, because they arrived in 1,000 ordinary moments. Who was praised, who was dismissed, how voices softened for some names and hardened for others. Carl Jung would call this the family's shadow, the truths a lineage refuses to face, exiled to protect its image. When a family cannot bear its pain, it forges an invisible contract that passes from hand to hand. Carry the burden, protect the story. Don't rock the boat. Here is the paradox that can save a life. It is not your fault, and it is your opportunity. Once you name what did not begin with you, you can choose where it ends. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The moment you question the unwritten laws, fate becomes a draft, not a verdict. And the one most likely to question those laws is the so-called black sheep, the family member who feels misfit not for lack of loyalty, but for fidelity to truth. The black sheep notices psychic barbed wire where others see white picket fences. We don't talk about that. That's just how it is. Why are you so sensitive? These are not casual phrases. They are alarms guarding the shadowed vault. Your nervous system hears them and refuses to sleep. You feel compelled to name what echoes behind the silence. That compulsion is not rebellion for rebellion's sake. It is devotion to reality. Jung called this the beginning of individuation, stepping out of unconscious roles and into conscious life. No longer an actor reading inherited lines, but a human being speaking in your own voice. Let's clear a myth. Black sheep are not troublemakers. They are truth-tellers. Their presence disturbs homeostasis, the system's preference for sameness over healing. Set a boundary, and those who benefit from your lack of boundaries may call it selfish. Speak history without edits, and those invested in forgetfulness may call it drama. Choose therapy, and the group may question your loyalty. The friction is not evidence you are wrong. It is evidence that you have stepped outside the contract that kept everyone comfortable and unexamined. The discomfort you provoke is the tremor of a structure being asked to hold more truth. How is that contract written? Sometimes through catastrophe so obvious they silence a town. Sometimes through disappointment so ordinary they harden into culture. Work until you disappear. Love equals sacrifice. Ambition is dangerous. Emotion is weakness. Children learn quickly where the applause is, where the cold is, and how to stay safe. The body records what the mouth cannot say. Research in epigenetics suggests that chronic fear can leave chemical marks that influence gene expression, shaping how stress echoes across generations. Translation: you can inherit a vigilance you never earned, a silence that isn't yours, a reflex to self-shrink that once kept someone else alive. Jung recognized this truth before biologists could measure it. The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent. It is not only pain that travels, it is possibility that never got a chance. A silenced singer becomes a line that flinches when you take a stage. A dreamer turned survivor becomes a rule inside you that whispers, "Do not shine too bright." If you sabotage success as soon as it knocks, if you downplay joy so it cannot be stolen, if you apologize before you speak, you may be keeping faith with an old law rather than living your own. How do you know you've stepped outside that law? You name a pattern and the room gets colder. You say no and someone hears war. You ask, what if we do it differently? And a chorus answers, who do you think you are? Your answer can be simple and revolutionary. Someone new. Someone free. Not from pride, but from quiet alignment between your insides and your life. Freedom here is not a shout. It is a change in temperature. Less fever, more clarity. It shows up in small choices that refuse to betray you. 5 subtle signs you are the family's black sheep for the right reasons. First, you feel relief, not guilt, when you tell the truth clearly. Second, you prefer clean distance to tangled closeness, knowing that love without respect is a trap. Third, your body calms around people who repair rather than people who perform. Fourth, you value outcomes over optics, choosing what heals over what impresses. Fifth, you can love without rescuing, refusing the role of hero or martyr. If these resonate, you are not abandoning your lineage. You are finally belonging to yourself, and paradoxically, that is how you serve the whole. Now the secret question, can you honor your ancestors and still break their rules? Yes, if you understand the difference between blame and boundaries. Blame keeps you fused to the story as its prosecutor or prisoner. Boundaries return you to authorship. You are not here to prosecute the past. You are here to protect the future. That begins with a practice Jung would recognize as shadow work, making the darkness conscious without making it your identity, so you can keep the wisdom and release the fear. Try a simple ritual of return. First, write the rule that runs you, precisely as your body hears it. Do not be seen, do not need, do not tell. Second, trace its lineage. Who modeled it? Who was punished for breaking it? Compassion rises when you witness the survival logic. Third, rewrite the contract in one sentence that keeps the wisdom and releases the fear. I honor your caution, and I choose visibility with discernment. Read it aloud until your breath believes you. The nervous system learns through repetition. You are teaching it a new Sabbath. Truth without exile, presence without panic. A story helps. Imagine a holiday table. The laugh is loud, the politics louder, and a familiar joke lands like glass. You feel the room waiting for your practiced grin. In the old contract, you would swallow the hurt to protect the peace. In the new agreement, you set down your fork, find your spine without raising your voice, and say evenly, let's not make people the punchline. The air tilts. Someone scoffs, someone blushes, someone changes the subject, someone thanks you later while washing dishes. Either way, you have broken rank with silence and kept faith with truth. Another scene. Your phone lights up with a request to fix what you did not break. The contract says, if you do not fix it, you will lose love. The new agreement says, if love requires self-erasure, it is not love. You reply, I care about you. I am not available to do that. Here are 2 options that might help. You offer care without compliance. That alignment is what Jung called the self coming online, the organizing center beyond persona and complex that can feel both firm and kind at the same time. Let's name those terms plainly. Persona is the mask we show the world. We need one, but it cannot be our face. Complexes are clusters of emotion and memory that hijack the present with the past. The family shadow is the drawer where the system hides what it cannot face. Projection is seeing in others what we refuse to claim in ourselves. Individuation is the long, humane work of becoming who you are beneath roles. And the transcendent function is the bridge the psyche builds when you hold opposing truths long enough for a third way to appear. Neither denial nor explosion. Third, conscious choice. What does that look like in daily life? You hold compassion and consequence at once. I understand why you shut down, and I will not participate in shutdown. You hold grief and gratitude. I wish we had a different past, and I am grateful I can choose a different future. You hold loyalty and limits. I honor where I come from, and I will not repeat what harms me. When you speak both truths without splitting, your nervous system learns steadiness that does not depend on other people changing first. Expect resistance. Systems prefer symmetry. The moment one part changes, the others tug. Questions arrive dressed as care. Why bring this up now? Can't you just move on? Assertions arrive dressed as authority. You're too sensitive. You're rewriting history. Translate them silently. I am scared of change. Your clarity shows me what I am avoiding. You do not have to persuade anyone. Your task is to live the new contract so cleanly that your life tells the story better than your arguments ever could. 3 anchors will help you hold the line. First, body before biography. Regulate your nervous system before renegotiating your relationships. Lengthen your exhale. Get sunlight. Drink water. Move. Eat. Sleep. The body decides whether change feels safe. Second, reality over resonance. If words sing but actions stay the same, believe the actions and adjust accordingly. Third, repair over rumination. You will stumble. When you do, name it, adjust one behavior and re-enter. Shame freezes stories. Repair finishes them. A brief word about forgiveness. Forgiveness without boundaries is exposure. Boundaries without compassion calcify into superiority. Mature freedom holds both. I do not owe you access to prove I have released you. I release you because I refuse to carry you. Forgiveness is what you do with your heart. Boundaries are what you do with your calendar, your wallet, your home, your voice, and your body. Together they let love be true instead of theatrical, steady instead of spectacular, durable instead of dramatic. What makes the black sheep the most important person in the family is not superiority. It is responsibility. You become the living place where an old story ends and a new one begins. You are the person who says, "The pain stops here. The wisdom continues." You translate sacrifice into stewardship, secrecy into truth, survival into life. You turn inherited vigilance into present tense discernment. You become the ancestor your descendants will thank without ever knowing your name, because their nervous systems will be freer than yours was. Markers of forward motion are quieter than you might expect. Sleep deepens. Laughter loses its defensive edge. You stop scanning rooms for danger and start scanning for resonance. You notice which conversations regulate you and which leave you buzzing. You prefer people who repair to people who perform. You outgrow the entertainment of crisis. You feel unexpectedly calm being misunderstood by those committed to misunderstanding you. You do not argue with projections. You step out of their light and let them fall to the floor. Do not wait for permission. The contract you are breaking thrives on waiting. Life widens each time you act in alignment. The meal you enjoy without apology. The raise you request without discounting yourself. The tears you let fall without explaining them away. Every congruent act teaches your body that truth and safety can live in the same house. Your ancestors taught vigilance because they had to. You add another chapter: trust with discernment, courage with care, love with limits. If you want a sentence to carry, try this: I return what is not mine and keep what is. Say it when old guilt rises, when the phone rings with a familiar demand, when memory edits itself to flatter the past. Say it when you succeed, and the part that fears exile tells you to shrink. Say it when you love, and the part that learned love equals loss tells you to run. Let the words be a doorway back to a life that fits your shape, rather than the outline of an old fear. Repetition here is not compulsion, it is training for freedom. Here is the quiet ending you earn. You stop being the family's symptom and become its possibility. You stop acting from inherited fear and start choosing from embodied clarity. You become transparent to the eternal, as Jung might say, aware that you are a link in a long chain, free to strengthen it with truth. Not everyone will bless your choice. Bless it anyway. The future will. In rooms you will never enter, people not yet born will feel the space you made, and their choices will be larger because you stood where the contract asked you to kneel. One last image to keep near your breath. Bloodlines continue through biology. Soul lines continue through consciousness. A bloodline says, this is what we pass down. A soul line says, this is where we transform it. You stand at that threshold now, where repetition meets remembrance. If you listen closely, you may hear a different kind of applause, quiet, ancient, relieved. It sounds like doors unlocking in houses you have never seen. It sounds like a river finally widening. It sounds like ancestors exhaling because someone finally chose truth over trance. Write this where you cannot miss it. I return what was never mine. I honor where I come from. I become who I am. And I let the story continue in me, not as a wound I carry, but as a wisdom I live. That is the truth Jung pointed toward. We do not escape the past. We integrate it. We do not destroy the shadow. We befriend it. We do not abandon the family. We become the first ones to love it without lying. The black sheep is simply the first shepherd, leading the flock out of forgetting and into remembrance, out of repetition and into responsibility, out of fear and into a freedom that will not ask you to disappear in order to belong.